It's a horrible journey. I mean, I wouldn't wish this journey, to be honest with anyone. Come December 14th, as an example, I brought a lawsuit against the United States government, the Department of Justice, Trump, Bill Barr, and a whole bunch of other people. Something a lot of people don't know, I am the first political prisoner held by this country, by my own country, because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional right. So I went down to 500 Pearl Street, met with a guy named Adam Pakula, he's a low-level guy, along with his boss, who was also low-level, but his boss, Enid Phoebus, and she's now since retired down to Florida to MAGA country. And I was supposed to go there to sign some papers, which interesting of itself that nobody else that I had ever spoken to who had gone through this process had been over to 500 Pearl Street, which coincidentally is the criminal court building. Normally, you go to a facility, the Bronx, called GEO, and they have the connection to the Bureau of Prisons for ankle monitoring, signing, and paperwork. They wanted me down at 500 Pearl Street. And it didn't sound normal. So I asked a buddy of mine, Jeff, who's a lawyer, if he'd do me the favor and come down with me. Something seemed wrong. Well, we go down there. They hand me a 2-page document, ask me to read it and sign it. And number one was that I will not speak to media, will not do television, will not do radio, publish a book, will not do a movie, will not, there's all of these very significant constitutional First Amendment restrictions. And both Jeff and I almost simultaneously said to them, hey, this is really heavy-handed. Not to mention my first book, Disloyal, was already with the printer. So I was like, the second I sign this, you realize that I'm going to be in violation. Can we tamp the language down? To which they asked us to read the others, see if we agree with them. And we were fine with them. They were a little restrictive, but I can get past it. They then asked us to wait out in the hallway while they reached out to the superiors. We did. We're sitting there. An hour 20 minutes goes by. All of a sudden, there are 3 marshals, massive guys, massive, handcuffs and shackles. And they handcuff, shackle me, literally, and then remand me back to prison, where I spent another 16 days in solitary confinement with zero movement at all until my lawyer, Danya, absolute genius, she went ahead and she filed these papers. Even Judge Alvin K. Hellerstein, federal judge Alvin K. Hellerstein, Southern District of New York, responded to government. This is the most retaliatory act by a president and a DOJ and the Attorney General I've ever seen in my 30 years sitting on the bench, that he could only rule that it was retaliatory and violative of my First Amendment constitutional right. As a result of the Dobbs decision, where we first started our conversation, not did Dobbs overturn Roe v. Wade, but it also overturned the pivotal case of Bivens, which is the way that will get redress from the government by suing them for violating your rights. Overturned Dobbs' decision, overturned Bivens, and now is sending it to Congress. Could you imagine? They want Congress or state to figure out how each violation should be handled by either the state or by Congress, congressional decision. Could you imagine? Congress can't even pass a fucking budget, and they want them to talk about how president weaponizing the Justice Department through a bloviated asshole Attorney General, Bill Barr, who none of us should give any credit for anything that he's doing, that they would go ahead and remand a U.S. citizen to prison, violate First Amendment constitutional right because he refused to waive it, based off of a document that they prepared specifically for him. There's so many violations here that it's scary. But Bivens was overturned, and now we're at the appellate court because there is actually a line in the document that was put out by Justice Thomas in the decision, which is, unless it is of the most unusual circumstance. And the entire argument is, what could be more unusual president through a complicit attorney general, weaponizing the Department of Justice to go against a U.S. citizen, remand him to prison because he wouldn't waive his First Amendment constitutional rights. I just don't understand. It's a case that's now taught in law school. It's taught in law schools today. And when we finally get a decision, if we're going to the Supreme Court. If we win, I guarantee you, government's going to take it to the Supreme Court. This is going to be another case that's going to be on par with like Brown versus Board of Education or Plessy versus Ferguson. This is constitutional. It's the First Amendment. The First Amendment. You don't get to the second if you don't have the first.
All right. And the fact that there is literally a committee, a gaslighting committee called the Committee of Weaponization of the Federal Government that is investigating Joe Biden for doing exactly what Donald Trump did. It really just does. It's the hypocrisy.
It's chaired by Jim Bag Jordan.
Yeah. I mean, it's all a sham, but again, every accusation is a confession every single time.